Welcome back to Journey to Success, the place where we bring you powerful stories, breaking news, and in-depth analysis on the biggest events shaping our world. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned because today we're diving deep into a dramatic development that's making waves across the global stage. The story of the Oreshnik missile tests, NATO's sharp reaction, and the surprising appearance of U.S. personnel at the Minsk exercises is one that touches on geopolitics, military power, and the fragile balance of global security. The unfolding situation has set alarm bells ringing from Brussels to Washington, from Moscow to Beijing. The Oreshnik missile program has long been shrouded in mystery, with only limited information trickling out from official sources, military analysts, and satellite intelligence leaks. What makes this moment unique is that the missile test coincides with large-scale Minsk exercises, drawing in allies, adversaries, and neutral observers. But when news broke that the United States appeared at those very same exercises, questions erupted. Was this a show of force? A covert backchannel communication? Or perhaps something more complex tied to strategic deception and signaling? To understand what's happening today, we need to rewind. The Oreshnik missile system was first hinted at nearly a decade ago, described in hushed tones as a next-generation hypersonic delivery platform capable of carrying both conventional and nuclear warheads. The name Oreshnik, meaning hazelnut, in Russian, might sound harmless, but its rumored capabilities suggest something far more threatening. Military insiders believe the missile could reach speeds exceeding Mach 7, maneuver mid-flight, and penetrate advanced missile defense systems. If true, this places it alongside or even ahead of the hypersonic systems already being tested by Russia, China, and the United States. The decision to test Oreshnik now is no coincidence. The timing aligns with ongoing tensions across Eastern Europe, especially around Belarus, which has become a central stage for both Russian influence and NATO scrutiny. Minsk exercises, traditionally joint drills that involve Russian and Belarusian forces, are now being observed more closely than ever before. When U.S. military observers appeared at the scene, it sent shockwaves. Officially, their presence was described as inspection, under arms control agreements. Unofficially, the message was clear: the United States was not going to allow Moscow and Minsk to dominate the narrative uncontested. NATO's reaction has been swift and vocal. Leaders from the alliance have emphasized the destabilizing nature of the Oreshnik tests, calling them provocative and dangerous. Jens Stoltenberg, NATO's Secretary General, warned that the missile test threatens to upend the fragile balance of deterrence in Europe. Several member states, especially those bordering Russia and Belarus, like Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia, have raised the alarm, calling for heightened readiness and expanded forward deployments of NATO forces. Yet the question remains: what does the Oreshnik missile actually change on the battlefield? According to leaked intelligence briefings, the missile's projected range allows it to strike deep into NATO territory within minutes. Its speed and maneuverability make it extremely difficult to intercept, meaning traditional missile defense systems in Poland, Romania, or even deployed Aegis systems in the Mediterranean could be rendered obsolete. If NATO believes its shield is crumbling, its response will likely involve both strengthening deterrence and pushing for new offensive capabilities. Let's look at the broader context. Hypersonic weapons have become the crown jewel of modern military competition. Russia boasts its Avangard and Kinjal systems. China has tested its DFZF glide vehicle. The United States is racing to deploy its own long-range hypersonic weapon. But Oreshnik, if it lives up to its rumored specifications, could tilt the balance. The timing of its tests, aligned with Minsk exercises, suggests a deliberate strategy: demonstrate power, reassure allies, and intimidate adversaries all at once. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. The U.S. appearance at the Minsk exercises is not just about observation. It sends multiple signals. First, it reminds both Moscow and Minsk that Washington has eyes on the ground, ready to document and respond to any escalation. Second, it reassures NATO allies that the United States is fully engaged in monitoring the situation. And third, it might even serve as a subtle message to Moscow: back-channel communication is possible even in the midst of high tension. For Belarus, hosting both the Oreshnik test coordination and the Minsk exercises places it in a precarious position. On the one hand, it gains leverage as a frontline state under Russia's protective wing. On the other, it risks becoming the target of NATO countermeasures, sanctions, and potentially even military deployments nearby. President Lukashenko has long balanced between demonstrating loyalty to Moscow and maintaining his own autonomy, but with Oreshnik tests on Belarusian soil, his margin for maneuver shrinks. Let's talk about NATO's likely response. Military planners are already considering several options. One possibility is the accelerated deployment of hypersonic capable systems to Europe, either on land or at sea. Another is the expansion of missile defense architecture, though its effectiveness against a missile like Oreshnik remains questionable. A third, more political response involves ramping up exercises of NATO's own, possibly along the Suwalki Gap, the narrow strip of land connecting Poland and Lithuania, which is seen as a potential flashpoint in any conflict with Russia and Belarus. But we also can't ignore the economic and diplomatic angle. The price of developing, testing, and deploying such systems is staggering. Analysts estimate the Oreshnik program costs billions annually, a significant burden even for Moscow. NATO's countermeasures will also come with hefty price tags. For example, the United States long-range hypersonic weapon program is projected to cost tens of billions by the time it is fully operational. This raises an important question. How sustainable is this arms race in the long term, especially when global economies are still reeling from post-pandemic recovery, energy shocks, and inflationary pressures? Now let's consider the global ripple effects. When one major power tests a system like Oreshnik, others take note. Beijing, already watching closely, will analyze both the technical details and the political fallout. If NATO appears divided or slow to respond, it emboldens not just Russia but also China in its strategic ambitions, particularly in the Indo-Pacific. Conversely, if NATO presents a united front, it could send a warning across the globe that such provocations will not go unanswered. Inside Washington, the appearance of U.S. personnel at Minsk exercises has sparked debate. Some argue it was a bold move to project confidence and gather intelligence firsthand. Others worry it risks legitimizing Belarus exercises or could even expose U.S. personnel to risks. Congress is already pressing the Pentagon for answers on the scope of U.S. involvement, the intelligence gathered, and how it will shape future policy. For ordinary people across Europe and beyond, the news of Oreshnik's test is unsettling. Hypersonic missiles aren't just abstract military jargon. They represent weapons that could change the nature of warfare, reducing response times to minutes and potentially undermining decades of arms control agreements. Citizens in Poland, Lithuania, and other NATO frontline states know that if push comes to shove, they would be the first in harm's way. That fear fuels calls for stronger defenses, more NATO presence, and reassurances from Washington. As the story unfolds, analysts are asking whether the Oreshnik missile is more about capability or about signaling. Military hardware is powerful, but sometimes the real power lies in perception. By testing Oreshnik now, Moscow sends a message. We have new tools, we are not afraid to use them, and NATO should think twice before escalating. By showing up at Minsk exercises, the United States responds. We see you, we are not backing down, and we are ready to act. This dance of power and perception is what defines modern geopolitics. Looking forward, the price of escalation will continue to rise. Each new missile test, each new deployment, and each new military exercise adds to the tension. Yet dialogue remains limited, with arms control treaties like INF already collapsed and New START hanging by a thread. Without renewed negotiations, the world risks sliding into a new era of unchecked arms racing, where weapons like Oreshnik become the norm rather than the exception. In the coming weeks, expect more official statements from NATO, more strategic analysis from think tanks, and possibly more satellite images revealing details of Oreshnik's test trajectory. But beyond the headlines, what matters most is the question of stability. Can NATO and Russia avoid miscalculation? Can the United States and Belarus find channels of communication despite their differences? And can the world adapt to a reality where hypersonic weapons redefine the very nature of deterrence? The price of peace is vigilance, but the price of escalation could be catastrophic. For now, the Oreshnik missile test reminds us that technology alone does not guarantee security. What matters is how nations choose to wield it, how alliances respond, and whether leaders have the wisdom to balance strength with diplomacy. Thank you for watching Journey to Success. This story is still developing, And we will continue to bring you the latest updates, the sharpest analysis, and the clearest insights into the events that matter most. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next.